Hello everybody, Mannix here. Got a little knife review for you right here, right now. Feel free to subscribe, hit that little bell notification if you do not want to miss any weekly knife, gear, EDC, gun videos. And feel free to support the channel on Patreon. Every penny counts. Link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Let's get right to it. This is going to be a review on an old friend of mine, the Cold Steel Voyager XL size. They also sell these in the large size, and they used to sell them in a medium size, but that was about half a decade ago now. This happens to be the Tonto blade. These also come in clip, drop point, and Chris, as well as what they call the Vaquero shape. All great choices, but the Tonto, as you may or may not know, is still my favorite. Now, Cold Steel is very well known for making over-the-top giant folding knives, like this one right here. They're also notorious for their triad lock, one of the strongest locking mechanisms for a folding knife in the world to date. Easily top 2, top 3 strongest. That's like an improved lock back with an integral stop pin in there. It's not going to be as fast as some side actuating locking mechanisms. It's not going to be as fast as a liner or a frame lock because there's quite a bit of pressure, a lot of tension on the blade right there. So you do have to give it a little bit of a wrist flick to deploy it, but it's not that big of a deal. It's still fast enough. Little wrist flick, that's all you need. It's totally worth the strength. Let's get the specs out of the way real quick. Weighs 7.7 ounces according to their website. The blade length is 5.5 inches. Handle length 6.75 inches, making the overall length 12.25 inches, so over a foot long. AUS 10A blade steel on this model in particular. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Stonewash finish, which is actually very beautiful. Absolutely love stonewash finishes. We have what they call the Grivex handles, formerly known as Grivery handles, which from what I understand is a reinforced FRN handle. So it's kind of like FRN, but there's extra glass in there. The ratio is just a little bit more glass to plastic, something like that. It's basically FRN, the super hard plastic that doesn't crack or break. Cool. Flush-mounted aluminum liners in there. 6061 aluminum, not steel, aluminum liners. They are not skeletonized, but they probably get a little bit too weak if you did that to aluminum. Aluminum's relatively weak compared to other metals out there. But because they're not skeletonized, they do the job just fine. The knife does not flex pretty much whatsoever, so very good. Like the iron cross pattern we have on the handle scales on here. What I'm assuming is also a Grivex backspacer right there. Tip up carry only. They give you a second pocket clip you can attach to the left side if you are a lefty or want to carry it in your left pocket. Very stubby little clip. I actually like the tiny little clips Cold Steel puts on their knives. Dual cylindrical thumb studs. Thumb studs are perfect. No problems there. Nice thwack on there too. Excellent. Awesome noise. It just feels very tough and sturdy in the hand. It's pretty thick. There's a really chunky handle on here. Simple design. We have these two big old shoals right here, which will fit the index, and I was going to say and the pinky, but my pinky actually doesn't reach there. Most people's won't. I have large size hands for reference. You can scooch down here into a mid grip. You can use your pinky and ring finger down here for extra reach. Extremely, extremely secure in this grip. You have a lot of reach. Really, really long blade as it is, and you can scooch even lower. I've seen some people do this. Feels a little bit less secure to me, but you can still do that. Lanyard hole on there, oversized. You can easily fit any size paracord in there pretty much. It'll work just fine if you want a lanyard on there as well. If you want even extra grip, you want to have even more to pull out of your pocket. About that's going to be poking out of your pocket, speaking of which, if you carry it, so you can pretty much tell very clearly that is a knife in there. Just keep that in mind. But for such a big knife, that's kind of what you want. You want to be able to grab onto it and deploy it quickly without any issues. And because the puck clips, even then, it's still relatively high up there on the handle. When you do get it out of your pocket, you might have to kind of scooch up a little bit to reach that thumb stud. That's the one case where actually a tip-down pocket clip may have been better in some cases because you're closer to that thumb stud. Not really a big deal, though. I still prefer tip-up anyway, so extremely aggressive handle scale in here. This iron cross pattern they call this just adds so much traction. It's really, really, really aggressive. I like it. Almost irritatingly aggressive. It's just really, really rough, but it can really help your hand not to slip. So, the AUS 10A. I actually really like AUS 10. If anything, it is an improvement over AUS 8, which a lot of us are familiar with. And AUS 8 is what these new model Voyagers, I say new, I mean back in 2011, I believe, when these came out. There's a previous Voyager from there, but as far as these Voyagers go, they began with the AUS 8, A. Later, they upgraded to the CTS BD1, I think back in 2016. They used that for a couple of years. And then after that, sometime they swapped to the AUS 10A. It's kind of comparable to BD1 in some ways, and it's better in some ways, worse in others. Overall, I say it's an upgrade, though. Basically, it's AUS 8, but with a little bit more carbon content. Long story short, a little bit better for cutting stuff. Not quite as good corrosion resistance, but because you have that stonewash finish on there, it doesn't matter too much. It's difficult for stonewash finishes to rust in the first place. It's just such a smooth finish. Absolutely beautiful stonewash. I love the stonewash finish Cold Steel puts on so many of their blades. It's just beautiful, and it's very functional too. Again, helps with rust resistance as well as wear and tear resistance. It's difficult for scratches to appear on stonewash blades to begin with. When you get to bead blasted finish, satin finishes, oh dear God, polish finishes, they pick up all your smudges, all your little hairline scratches. They get scratched so easily. Not the stonewashes, so both functional and beautiful. So glad they're using this on a lot of their knives. Really gorgeous. Triad lock, again, one of the strongest in the world. That stop pin just takes the brunt of all of the force, pretty much, both positive and negative force on the blade. It's a really ingenious, simple design. I like this kind of bead blasted looking bar we have back here. We do have some jimping on the spine, which doesn't do very much. It has more traction than right here, but it's just not sharp enough to really provide any real traction. I don't know why they do that, but it would be kind of nice if they also added some traction on the bar and the blade, but they didn't, still. So very simple, very functional knife. Pocket clip, it's going to be pretty rough on your pocket. We have really, really rough traction on here on the handle, as I said, and the pocket clip is tight. It's damn tight. Not as tight as some other models I have, but it's not a loose pocket clip by any means. It's pretty damn tight. So you may want to loosen it. You may even be able to take the pocket clip off. You can sand down here just a little bit, soften that up so it doesn't rip up your pants so much. That is kind of a hit. I will give this knife the pocket clip. Although it is very functional overall and extracts fine, it is pretty tight. It's going to be a little rough. If you have nice jeans or something and you keep using this over and over again, keep putting in your pocket, extracting it, putting in, extracting it, eventually you're going to start seeing wear and tear. So just keep that in mind. It is tough. But overall it is functional, and at least you can be pretty sure it's not going to fall out of your pocket because it's just holding on for dear life on there. And again, ambidextrous. Ambidextrous thumb studs, ambidextrous locking mechanism, ambidextrous pocket clip. At least they give you a second one that can be swapped to the side. As you can see, it's lopsided. So if you stuck this on the side, if you managed to fit it in there, which you wouldn't be able to because these screws are not symmetrical, it would be facing the wrong way anyway, which is why they give you a separate pocket clip. Why Cold Steel does not just give you a symmetrical design so they don't have to spend the money on making separate clips, I don't know, but they've been doing it for a long time, so I guess there's no issues there. It's relatively lightweight for its size, again, just under 8 ounces or so. I'm just going to take their word for it. I didn't weigh this one myself, but just under 8 ounces is what it sounds like. So for such a big blade, it's actually not that heavy. I've seen heavier on smaller knives. It's really tough. It's very affordable. You can get these for about $65 late 2022. I forget what they retail at. I want to say it's like $119.95 or something. I can't even remember. Who cares? You're not going to pay that much. Again, just around $60, maybe $70 on the higher end. So really not that bad. If you really look around, you might be able to find these for like $50 or $55. So it's a great price overall. It's a huge blade, and you got a lot of variety. Again, clip point, drop point, Chris, which is a wavy pattern. That's really cool. Vaquero, which is somewhat like a kukri style blade, just a little bit more extreme. This is my favorite. Again, the Tonto. Great for impact cuttings. It'd be great for piercing. It's really thick, really, really thick. And because it's a relatively heavy blade in comparison to the weight of the knife overall, so it thwacks out pretty readily. Just all that momentum on there. Again, even for being such a long-ass blade, it actually deploys very quickly, even with this style locking mechanism on here. So it's very well executed. It's very grippy, deploys fast, extracts okay. It's not great as far as the pocket clip is concerned, but it's not bad either. A lot of grip on here. It's not going to knock out of your hand. It's very versatile. You can choke up here if you want. So you have 1, 2, and I would say possibly 4 grips if you count this as a grip, the absolute maximum reach, although it's not all that secure. It's very good for chopping, piercing, slashing, hacking, just hard use knife, but it's also a folder, and it's huge. Great for defense. Again, it's lightweight for its size anyway. There's a lot to grip onto. It's a knife that screams, use me. It's not the most beautiful, pretty knife in the world. It's not gorgeous. It's not really that stylistic. It's not really intended to be. It's a user, dude. It's a user XL, super strong folder. And at that, it excels. That's affordable, too. You have a good blade still for the money. The AUS 10, for the money, you can't really beat it. It's difficult to find anything better for that price point. D2? D2 would be a little bit more expensive on something like this, I think. And it would probably rust a little bit easier. But again, stonewash finish. I think it's not a bad looking knife. I think it's beautiful in its own right. Even though it's not intended to be a gorgeous knife or anything. It's still very functional. These Cold Steel Voyagers are kind of like the Glocks of the knife world to me. No, they're not gorgeous. They're not beautiful. I still think they're good looking. I think they're cool. But if anything, it's all about function over form. And as far as function goes, as far as a defensive blade goes, as far as a user knife that you can just hack, pierce, slash, do really hard work with, and be a folder at this size, and be reliable, and not be too heavy to carry, that's what these knives excel at, these XL Voyagers right here. And of course, you can step down to the large Voyager if you want to save $10 or so, as well as have something a little bit more manageable. By all means, go with something like that. But these Voyagers, you really can't beat them if this is what you are looking for. You're just looking for one folding knife to defend your life with, or just do extremely hard work with and just have a lot of reach. They're just cool. It's one of my favorite knives ever. I just always go back to it. Love carrying it. It's just a really, really cool, oversized folder that won't break the bank. It's got pretty much everything you need. I'll show you a couple other Cold Steels that are about this same size. Here we got the Holdout 1. I think it's a little bit longer, actually. Yeah, it is. These new holdouts, anyway, if you get the ones with the new blade steel, they're going to be closer to $150. Double the price, almost triple of the price of this guy right here. Just keep that in mind. You do have a much better blade still, but cool knife, by the way. Very balanced, lightweight, slimmer. Nicer pocket clip on here, too. I like that a lot. Same locking mechanism. Looks completely different, but it's another option, although you're going to be paying a lot more for that. Espada, large. Also a stonewash finish, very beautiful. G10 handle scales instead of the Grivex right there. A lot heavier for the size. You have thumb plate so you can wave it off the pocket. This one does not. Carries a little nicer because the G10 is smoother than the checkered Grivex we have right here, although it is the same style pocket clip. But again, price. Even though the blade's still AUS 10 on this guy as well, it is more expensive. Looking at closer to $135 or so for these guys. Again, a little bit more than double the price of the Voyager. We got two more here. Raja 2. These come in the AUS 10 again. Same blade steel. Same handle material as the Voyager right here. Even thicker, I think. Let's do a comparison. Slightly thicker. It bevels around a little bit more. The grip's completely different. It's not quite as grippy. You might want that softer grip on the Raja. Much bigger pocket clip, though. Carries a lot better, but there's a lot more poking out of your pocket. Same locking mechanism. Works just as well. Deploys a lot easier. You can wave it off of your pocket. It deploys extremely easily, and it's a very extreme design. Here we have a kukri, but you may not like how it's less covert. It is heavier, too. We got steel liners in there instead of the aluminum, I believe. A little bit thicker. Blade's a little bit bigger. Rajas are closer to about $110, $100, so just a little bit more expensive than this guy, but you are getting more blade and more material right there. Now here's something that's going to be a little bit cheaper, actually. The Lazan large. Little leaf spring lock on there. It's a liner lock. All of these are triad locks except this guy. We have a liner lock with a leaf spring lock that can be used. These are closer to $35, maybe $40. By the way, amazing price. Amazing price for such a huge blade. We have a 6-inch blade on here, which is half an inch longer than the 5.5-inch blade right there, if you can math. Completely different handle, skeletonized steel liners instead of flush-mounted aluminum liners. Very different knife overall, but it's another option if you're just looking for something for defense. Not going to quite be as hard use. It's more geared just as a defensive blade, I think. The triad lock really excels at strength. So you can do pretty much anything with it. The liner lock's going to be a little weaker. But again, you do have that extra safety mechanism on there. Different pocket clip too. Cheaper, but we have HCR13 MOV blade steel instead of the AUS 10, which I'm going to say is not quite as good, but you're not paying as much. So that's kind of how that trade-off works. Now all these knives have pretty much an extreme design to them. I agree with the Espada, I think looks the best. But they're all good looking in their own way. However, if you're talking about pure function, I really don't think that you can defeat the Voyager, the star of the show today. We're coming to simply just weight, the feel of the handle, how it performs, its speed, overall practicality. I think the Voyager wins as far as its price is concerned. It truly is an everything XL folder. Can't go wrong with it. So Pick your poison, pick your blade style, pick your size if you wish. Voyager XL. Sweet knife.